Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GWOT FOB podcast. I'm your host, Jim Robinson. This is brought to you by Combat Outpost Robinson, doing great things for our veterans. Today, we've got another special guest for you, young lady by the name of Beth Bailey. She's a freelance contributor to Fox News, covering Afghanistan, the Middle East, Asia, and Central America. She was former intelligence analyst with the Department of the Army, and she's also the host of the Afghanistan Project podcast, which takes a deep dive into 20 years of war. And she's also host of the Fighter Pilot's Guide to Living podcast. And I'm a big fan of both of those. So, Beth, welcome to the show, and look forward to talking to you and learning a little bit more about you and all the great things that you got going on your podcast. So, yeah.
It's a very warm introduction. I feel, I still can't believe that those are all things that are part of my crazy experience right now. Thanks for having me on.
There's a lot of crazy things going on right now.
Talk about it. I just can't. The world cannot catch a break, and some of them are very exciting, and some of them are devastating. So you're just
very much so.
It's a roller coaster, and we're just here.
It pretty much, we're along for the ride. So it's one crazy ride after the next here lately. Won't you give us a little background on what it was like growing up and how you ended up getting into journalism and winding up in Afghanistan and covering the war for 20 years?
Well, I grew up the daughter of a fighter pilot, hence the Fighter Pilot's Guide to Living. And, always surrounded by fighter pilots. And there's just a kind of special culture that goes along with that crowd. And my dad always imparted on me that I was lucky to live in this country and that it was important for me to serve it at some point in the future in whatever way that I could. And I knew that I would never make it through plebe summer. My dad's an academy grad. He told me he could get me a spot. I said I would never make it. I'd be sobbing every day. They'd kick me right out. I knew that was not the path for me. And so somewhere in college, I developed, the only way to say it is, an obsession with Afghanistan. I knew that I wanted to be part of fixing the myriad issues that were going on there. It was a very complex problem set, and I was just full bore going to go do that. I applied for a number of jobs inside Afghanistan, did not get a single one of them because I think they wanted people with master's degrees, not these, brand new college graduates, right? And I ended up getting a job instead with the National Ground Intelligence Center, which was perfect. In fact, when I got that job, I already had accepted an offer to be a TA and do a master's program at Old Dominion University so I could be close to home. And as soon as I got the NGIC job, I said, forget that. Like, we're doing this because maybe I'll get to go to Afghanistan. And, the biggest sadness of my life is that I never did get to go to Afghanistan. I did all my work behind a computer screen, but I loved that job. Every day was a new adventure. There was never a day where I woke up and thought, oh, I do not want to go to work today. It was just like one challenge after another and trying to put a great big puzzle together and, take all this information from all these different sources and try to figure out what was reality on the ground. And the important thing was, of course, helping the warfighters, because that's what NGIC does, is support the Army and support senior level analysts, at the Pentagon and other places. And so I think that I was pretty good at my job, accumulated a couple awards in my 2.5-3 years that I was there, and just loved every minute. But like I said, but then in 2013, there was the announcement that we were going to be negotiating with the Taliban. And at the same time, there were furloughs coming and there was a shutdown looming. And so I left that job, and it was the hardest moment of my life. I still remember I was like this suburban housewife, right? I was brand new married and living in the rural Midwest, and just like reading the news every day about what was happening with these Taliban negotiations. And the day I saw the news that the Taliban had raised their white flag over their negotiations office in Qatar, I almost threw my phone across the room. I remember slamming it on the countertop. I was so mad.
Wow.
Because, there was nothing I could do. I didn't have a high-side computer. I couldn't say, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
I couldn't, there was nothing. I'm just this housewife with no power whatsoever. I started writing books. I thought that, maybe I could write the war novel to end all wars. Never sold those books, but they were about the surge era in Afghanistan, which I know you are intimately familiar with that period.
Yes.
And I never gave up on Afghanistan. I only gave up on present day because there was nothing I could do. I just retreated to the past and what I knew and wrote about it. And then I started freelancing somewhere after my daughter was born. It was just too hard to try to continue writing this book that I couldn't figure out how to end it. And I think I couldn't figure out how to end it because the war hadn't ended.
That's very possible. Yeah.
It was just it was too hard to, and there were a lot of reasons, but that was a big one. So I started freelancing. And then when Afghanistan fell, I mostly was covering anti-Semitism and veterans issues for between 2017, 18, and then 2021. I stayed far away from Afghanistan, but my sources started talking to me about, hey, I have an interpreter on the ground, or, my person is left behind. I'm worried about what's going to happen as the withdrawal loomed closer. And I eventually got sucked in. So that's what changed for me was in April of 2021, watching Tom Schumann, Killzone on Instagram. He's very well respected in the veteran community.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had just covered his PB Abate initiative for Coffee or Die magazine.
Yeah.
And Abate is one of my heroes. I mean, I don't do CrossFit. The one WOD I will do is the Abate WOD. That's it.
That's cool.
Because he's just talk about the epitome of a warrior. His the rules of war fighting that he has. Yeah. I'm fully all about Abate. And so I thought PB Abate was just an incredible initiative. I'm a big fan of Tom Schumann. And so when he put out a request on Instagram saying, hey, who can help me get my interpreter out? And he just seemed so, uncharacteristic for Tom.
Right.
Except for when he was talking about things like, veteran suicide. That was the similar level of concern and needing help. And I thought, well, I can write. I can't throw down a 9-line. I can't get your interpreter out of there.
Right.
I can write. And so I broke this story. He actually mentioned me in his book, which was a really heartwarming thing because I broke it in a tiny paper, in a tiny way. And then the New York Times continued. I shouldn't call it a tiny paper, but it wasn't the New York Times, right? The New York Times wrote about it. The Chicago Sun-Times wrote about it. They talked about him on the floor of the Senate, and still, despite all that coverage of his story, Tom had to have his fellow Marines pull out Zach.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of different organizations that came to be during that time just for that reason.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's what I ended up covering later. And that's what really sucked me in was when I got looped in with all those groups and just... Yeah,
and it sucked me in too, so you're not alone.
Yeah, it's a vacuum. If you have free hands and time, it will absolutely steal those things from you, but it gives you more, I think. And maybe do you agree? I would never change anything that I did over the last 4.5 years.
Well, no, me either.
That's rewarding.
Oh, it'd have to be. I mean, to be a part of that. You mentioned that you stepped away from the Afghanistan thing for a period of time and then got sucked back in. Something similar to that happened to me as well. So I understand what you're saying. I lost my oldest son in Afghanistan in 2010. And I kind of got away from it a couple of years after that. And then when the Doha agreement was signed, that really boiled my blood. And that kind of that right there was the catalyst that sucked me back into it. And, you know, I've been following what everybody else has been going on and doing ever since. So, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about. So,
well, I think you probably feel it even more deeply than I do because of that. You know, for me, it was, and I was very concerned about, I fell in love with a Marine officer while I was getting ready to start at NGIC. And it was right during the surge, and I was terrified that he was going to lose his life in the surge. And it changed how I felt about my career. I went from thinking war is where it's at, like we should kill all the people, to thinking, how do I protect these people so that they don't get lost? And it was so personal to me. Like I took my job so much more seriously, and to this day, you know, it's changed the whole way I look about war. But I never lost anyone. And I've seen, you know, you've done so much in honor of your son. And so your story is like the reason that I still do this. And same thing with like all the HKIA veterans, the Gold Star families who feel like, why is there no answer for what happened to my child? You know, that's all of these moments, the DOA agreement, the failed withdrawal, and the chaos that happened, and the left behind equipment, all these things, you know, it means even more to the people who lost something and lost someone. Like
very much so. Very much so. I mean, there's a lot of anger there, and there's a lot of concern, and within the last year that's amplified. Just within the last year, it's amplified, because even though I lost my son over there, I owe a lot to our allies over there. I mean, they kept him alive for a long time, you know, going out on raids with them and stuff, you know, the interpreters, you know. So I owe them people a lot, and they'll always be in my heart. So I had the privilege of having an Afghan come to Ohio a couple of weeks before Christmas and did an interview, and his interview is going to be coming up here in a couple of weeks. Masood Hosseini, he actually made the trip. He's living in the States now. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning war videographer. So I got to spend a few days with him, and, you know, get to know him, and he and I will be friends forever. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So
very cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on within the Afghan community and the U.S. I know that there's a lot, and I do mean a lot, of Afghan people that's still in the pipeline, trying to get out of Afghanistan, waiting on their paperwork to come through, and their SIVs and all that. And all that, from my understanding, has been put on hold. And I know that you are following that. So you want to give us a little update on what's going on with that?
Yeah, from my understanding, and I have had a little less time to look into that lately. I've had some family emergencies and just lots of work.
Yeah.
But all immigrant visa processing is paused for Afghans as a result of the November 26th shooting.
Yes.
All Afghans are being punished because of the actions of one Afghan. And, you know, I think that some immigration hawks will say, oh, well, and these two and this one. That's
right.
4. That's still 4.
Right.
You know, and like you think about the women. You think about the immigrant visas are paused. The U.S. refugee admissions program has been suspended since January 20th when Trump took office.
Right.
And I think a lot of people forget. So, you know, SIV is for interpreters and people who work directly for the U.S. government.
Yes.
The U.S. refugee admissions program is for people like Special Operations Forces allies who worked for ANISOC and were right at the tip of the spear with our soft guys.
Right. The zero unit guys.
The zero units actually get SIV, believe it or not, because they were employed through CIA. like it's a government contract that they were on. So they do qualify for SIV. The problem with the zeros is that they were not prioritized when they came here, because we prioritized giving SIVs to people who were overseas.
Right.
So now the zero units are here, and I'm glad you brought it up, because there's so many layers of this, right? It's so complicated and difficult to understand.
It's very complicated. Yeah.
And so for them, you would think, oh, they're in the US, they're safe, right? Well, they had humanitarian parole when they came in, just like everyone who came in during Operation Allies Refuge. That parole is good for 2 years. It was extended in 2023 for an additional 2 years, and then it lapsed this year. It was not renewed this year, which means that their safety here, if they didn't get an SIV yet, because we did not prioritize them because they were supposed to be safe here and they had parole, now they're losing work authorization. What do you do if you can't provide for your family and you can't work? It's terrible, especially considering what the zeros did. And if anybody isn't familiar with what the zeros did during 20 years of war, you know, a lot of what they did during the war years is classified. But look at what they did just at Kaya at the end. I mean, they went and they cleared the airfield so that U.S. troops could safely be in that airfield. They went head to head with the Taliban, killed several Taliban fighters who were inside the airfield waiting to ambush American troops, from everything I've been told. Then they manned security outposts around the airfield. And you don't hear about that because we hear about the bigger gates, right? But they were doing that. And that's why they got pulled out last, after all of their countrymen. And some of them weren't able to get their families here. And so they're still waiting on reunification. There are too many Afghans who came here and have not been able to reunify with their families. And now reunification is also not moving. But, you know, there are there are other U.S. refugee admissions program people who are in trouble, who are still stuck overseas. Every couple of weeks, I get these heartbreaking messages from a man who was a very high level prosecutor, who put Talibs in jail. And he's afraid to leave his home in Pakistan because Pakistan is deporting all Afghans back. It doesn't matter if you were a U.S. ally or not anymore, because we're not protecting them and there is no path for them anymore. And so he's afraid to leave his home because he knows what happens if he gets returned to Afghanistan. You know, 53 at least prosecutors and legal personnel have been murdered. Judges and like all of that group have been murdered in reprisals. And so there is no way that he would not be found and murdered if he were returned to his home.
They would know. Yeah,
it's just harrowing. Yeah, people think the Taliban are stupid or that they're backwater, but they can't administer a country for the life of them. But they don't want to either. They also have a giant camera network throughout Kabul, and it's facial recognition enabled. You can look, if anyone doesn't believe me, please search BBC facial recognition cameras Kabul, and you will find the article. BBC has seen these personally. So if you don't believe me, you don't believe the BBC. It's not some conspiracy theory. It's very concerning what's happening right now.
And then there's also the issue of the women in Afghanistan and how they're treated, and you know, the lack of education, and you know, being forced to marry into, you know, the different terrorist cells, whether it be ISIS-K or Taliban or the TTP or whoever.
I can't believe we've let what happens to Afghan women happen to them, because a lot of what we did for 20 years was trying to build things up for Afghan women and get them. They had the highest maternal mortality rate in the world, the highest infant mortality rate in the world before 2001. We worked so hard to get Afghan women educated, to get them in medical schools, in universities again, and to see that they can't even go to school after the 6th grade. It's just despicable to me. And to see that they can't leave without a mahram, which, you know, like a male guardian, and it has to be a member of your family. It can't just be any man, because then that would be inappropriate, because you would be alone with another man. There's just, they can't travel alone. They can't leave the country alone. So even if somebody had, an SIV case, right, and we wanted to move them out of the country before we stopped all of that, if you were a woman with kids trying to come on an SIV case, how do you do that if you can't leave the country without a male?
Right.
I do think we had workarounds for that, but and I think there were some enterprising people who came up with workarounds for that. But it's the fact that that exists and that we haven't pushed back on that, and that it's not just us, the UN. This was in the summer of 2024, I want to say. The UN agreed to meet with the Taliban and said that the Taliban said no women are allowed. And they said, okay, fine. What is the UN doing? You don't let them make the rules.
Right. I mean, you can't trust them anyway. Right.
Right. Yeah. So there is, it's very alarming to see the world being completely silent while women are losing their rights completely.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you don't treat people that way, period. Now, I understand that they got their own ways of living and everything over there, but for the UN to bow to that was a show of weakness, in my opinion. So,
agreed.
So how are things going as far as everything else? I know that you ventured out into some other areas.
Well, Venezuela was a riot. I talked to an exiled politician, a self-exiled politician from Venezuela over the weekend, who was nearly in tears with gratitude that Maduro had been taken away. But, for me, all I want to cover is Afghanistan. It's
Right.
just so hard to, and I've covered a lot of things.
Right.
But there's not much appetite for Afghanistan anymore, and trying to find stories. When I started there, I was so grateful. The Washington Examiner published so many pieces that I did, and I had hundreds of Afghans wanting to tell me their stories because they had hope that it would help.
Yeah.
And the Washington Examiner still loves to publish my stuff, but there's a lot fewer people who want to come forward and say, this is what's going on, because at this point they've lost that hope that anything is going to change anything. And if an Afghan asks me, will this make a difference for me? I'm honest and straight up front. It's not going to make a difference.
Right. You have to be.
And you hate to say it. I've been saying it for years because I don't ever want to be, falsely portray hope, but they've lost it now. It's not just me saying this isn't going to make a difference, but it's important for history. It's them just, I think, knowing that there's not much to be done. And I was on a call last week about the clampdown in the US legally and more arrests and things, but even that's not being reported in the media. And so that's my next step, is to try to get some more of those stories, because I covered all the stories I could find in the beginning. I think there were like 5 big arrests that happened that I covered over the course of the last year. That it was usually Afghans who had come across the southern border and been paroled in. They had parole. Everything was fine. And then the parole got revoked and they found themselves in ICE detention facilities.
Right. There's several of them fell into that.
Oh yeah, but that was it. It was just several. And I think everyone was kind of surprised and was prepared for it to be a much bigger number, but it wasn't.
I was.
And now it seems like it is going to be a bigger number, but fewer people are coming forward because the tides have turned, and in the media it's now that, Afghans are all a certain way that they are not. And if you know Afghans, they are not that way. So it's very disheartening. And now that the family emergency has lessened, that's the next thing on my plate, is to get back to covering these stories and telling people what's happening. And just being quiet about it doesn't mean that things have changed or that they're better. It's just because I don't have the time at the moment. But
I totally understand that. So yeah. I mean, and you do a phenomenal job at covering it when you do. So, I mean, I mean, you got something coming out every day.
It feels that way sometimes. Yeah.
Right.
It's slowing down a little bit now.
Right.
I'm doing a lot of different kinds of things, but it's still, as much as I can get stories, anything I can find, I'm
Right.
trying to tell, so that, and
Right.
this is a plea to anybody who's watching, who is Afghan, who wants to share their story, or who runs a refugee organization and wants to talk about something, or who has a deployment to talk about. That's another thing that I love to do on my podcast, but I haven't, there's been so many emergencies in the last year that I haven't had much time to go looking for deployment stories to share. But I think it's really important, because that's the reason that so many of us care.
Right. And for everybody out there that's watching this, if you've got those stories and you were deployed in Afghanistan, get a hold of Beth.
We can geek out about what you did and where you were and
right.
what happened and who the enemy was and how prepared you were and what kind of art you left on the porta-johns and all the important stuff. What kind of ribbons you like.
I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of the Athena Project up there in Canada.
I know. I'm very excited about that too. I really need to dive in one day and just see, because it's amazing to capture the change.
Yes, it is.
Because it's such a dynamic, that's what drew me to all of this. It's such a dynamic battle space, so many things going on, so much pain.
Yeah.
I still, to this day, when I left Intel, a lot of, former, veterans, loved ones still wear I wear Taylor Hoover's, Staff Sergeant Taylor Hoover's, because I was given it by his commanding officer after I had him on my podcast.
Okay.
But that's a new edition. I have been wearing another one that I bought myself, and I didn't want to put a name on it. I didn't want to do that because I wasn't close enough to any one person, and I thought that would be unfair. So I had it emblazoned with Operation Enduring Freedom Until They All Come Home. And I did that for a very specific reason, because I knew, having spoken with so many veterans of that war, that there were parts of them that would never come home. And sometimes it was physical, and sometimes it was mental. And I knew that even if one person left part of themselves in that country, it wasn't over. And so that's why I still wear it today. You can't even read it anymore, but I still wear it as a reminder. That, this is never over, and I don't take it off for anything.
Well, good for you.
So it's important to me. That's, I think people are surprised when they see. I had one guest come on recently, and she's like, why? And it's a very complicated thing, but I do care a lot. This is more than just a place, more than just a story, more than any one thing. It is all these human lives that have been intertwined and that are part of my story, and that I'm honored to get to share and be part of in any way I can.
And that's one of the things that I like about your podcast, because you are so involved in it and you do care, and it shows. So
thank you.
You just keep doing what you're doing, because you've got it under control.
I'm so glad to hear that, Jim. Let me tell you, I am so glad to hear that, because oftentimes I'm like, oh, there's 10 different balls in the air right now, and I'm really trying hard not to drop any.
I know that feeling as well.
Yeah, that's a common feeling in my life as a single mother with multiple things going on. I'm just like, let's just keep going. Just keep going.
And then that's what you got to do.
Yep.
But you got a lot of people behind you, a lot of good people behind you, and you got a lot of very good connections. And you have made friends for life. Whether you realize it or not, you have made friends for life.
It's so true. It's been, I think that's the most amazing thing. I had somebody ask me, who are your friends locally? And I'm like, I don't really, but like, I have all my people. I have my Signal group that I'm like, I can reach out to any of my people at any time. And like, we might not have ever, we might have not seen each other in years physically, or we might have only seen each other physically once, but like, I can call them in a crisis, and we share something, because we've gone through these crazy times together. It's like a very deep it's a great thing. I'm so blessed. And,
Yes.
it's been a crazy ride, right? There have been so many tears, so many moments where I thought I am so exhausted that I can't keep doing it. But
I know
you
the
find
feeling.
the strength. Yep,
Yes.
you find the strength. Oh, I'm sure. And I will always say, Jim, what you've gone through is so much more intense. So I'm sure you understand the feeling in a way that I can't.
Yeah. But at the same time, I know, like you said, I know firsthand, what it's like to be through it, to go through losing somebody like that in Afghanistan, and then to see 20 years just shot to hell and just handed back to the very people that you've been fighting for 20 years. I mean, there's a lot of anger in me because of that. And I'll be honest with you, I will never understand it. Never. So,
Me either.
So that's one of the things that drives me to help veterans and to do this podcast and to get to know some of the Afghans that were our allies. And if there's any way that I can help them, I will. When Masood left here a couple weeks ago, I told him, I said, if you ever need something, all you got to do is pick up the phone and call me. I mean, I may not have the answers, but I got some connections and I can make some phone calls and we can try and get some answers, So, I really enjoyed my time with him for sure.
That's amazing. I can't wait to listen to that. That sounds excellent.
Yeah. and he had a lady that traveled here with him, and you probably know her as well. Lynn O'Donnell.
Oh my gosh. You know what? And as soon as you said that he was a Pulitzer Prize winning, I thought about Lynn and I wondered if that was who Lynn worked with, but I didn't want to say it if I was wrong. I love Lynn. Like you would not believe. She is the most courageous.
Oh,
I don't understand. She was there at the beginning, right? In 2001, in the midst of the craziness.
Yes.
She went back at the fall. She went back and almost got arrested by the Taliban.
Oh, she did get arrested.
Well, they didn't put her in like a prison, though, but they made her retract her journalism. Yeah, I had her on my podcast to tell the story. And I joke you not, Jim, at one point, she was right next to a window. And at one point, she looked over because something happened at the window, and I thought she was about to get murdered. She was getting a box of champagne delivered to her house. And I was like, oh, okay, Lynn. Thank God. I have been worried about that woman since I first saw the Taliban's X post that they made her put out. Yes. So she's just, talk about ballsy. It's incredible.
And she's just an incredible lady, and she's a blast to be around.
I believe that. I've only been around her on podcasts. So.
Yeah, she actually came into town. Her and Masood came together. She was in the States working on a book, staying in New York. She's back over in UK now.
Oh man, bummed I missed her.
Yeah, and we had planned to do a podcast with her, remote like this. And just one day out of the blue, and she sends me a message. She says, I got to change your plans. I'm coming to Middletown.
Wow.
So I said, there's nothing here to see, but you're more than welcome to come. So they came for the weekend, and we hung out all weekend, and we just had a blast.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been there. That would have been a time.
Oh, it was. I mean, I'll tell you what, the night they got into town, they got in late, and I picked them up and went and got some pizzas, and I took them out to the local VFW, and we just had a blast.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll cherish my time with both of them people. I mean, they was just a joy to be around, and the stories they had, and I don't know what else to say, man. She is just. Both of them are very incredible people and very lucky to be alive.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So.
Very much.
So. Well, how's the other podcast going?
It's going great. My dad has passed on contacts for so many of his friends in the Tomcat community.
Okay.
And so that's been the first, tranche is those stories. And, I got to sit with my dad's best friend, who is one of my favorite people to, shoot the shit with. And that was, it's just like, I'm like, is this my life? And I'm learning all these things because when I first started it was just me. And I knew I couldn't do it alone, but my buddy, who is a Super Hornet, or Wizzo, I always want to say Rio, but they're Wizzos now. Anyway, he was deployed at the time when I wanted to get this going. And so it was really great when he could do it with me, because he brings the technical expertise.
Okay.
And then I bring
that's a big help.
I bring the more like journalistic thing. So I think that we're figuring out our rhythm, and I'm learning all these things. I never knew what MCON was. I never knew all this stuff where I'm like, wow, I'm starting to really understand the jet now, and the different, the D and the AB and this, just all these variants. It's crazy. It's awesome. I love it.
I love watching it. I mean, you guys get on there, like you said, you just shoot the shit, and it just makes for a good show.
It's fun. It's so different from,
it's a lot of fun,
and I still love every time I sit with a guest on the Afghanistan Project. I'm so glad to be talking about my favorite topic with people who really care about it,
Yeah.
But it is a heavier podcast, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so it is nice sometimes to just take that break and still be sharing these stories that, the reason that podcast started is so many of my dad's friends, I would call him and he would say, hey, so-and-so just died. And it was such a loss because their stories went with them. And so that's one of the things we really focus on at the Fighter Pilot's Guide to Living, is telling the stories of some of the guys who did go on, Snort, Dale Snodgrass, probably the best aviator of all time, either him or Hoser, Joe Satrapa. It depends on who you talk to, which one was better. Hoser was the better gunner for sure. He was he was the most epic gunner. But Snort, Snort was like the test pilot for Tomcats for so long. And just to hear those stories from people who do remember them is really special, and it keeps that memory alive. And that's part of what we're trying to do too. So,
well,
it's great.
And your dad sounds like just a great guy. So
my dad is my hero, and anytime something goes wrong, that is the first call.
Yeah. And it shows.
Yeah, I am 100% his his fan.
Your daddy's girl for sure.
Yep, but God love me. He's his own breed of fun. But yeah, I'm super lucky to have been influenced by him in my life.
Well, that's awesome. All right. Well, before we wrap this up, is there anything else that you'd like to bring up? You want to talk about?
The only thing I want to say is, if you're out there and you're listening to this and you're not sure where you stand on the Afghan issue, I urge you to get to know some Afghans, and I urge you to find your local, there's probably a resettlement group that works specifically with Afghans, if not in your state, then in your area. If you ask around, go to an Afghan restaurant, have some Kabuli pulao, and just, I don't know, there's something I always teach. I told you I write, or still do write, a bit about anti-Semitism. It was a big beat of mine back in the day because I grew up reading about the Holocaust, majored in German, and ended up working with the DOJ, chasing this one Nazi who came here under false pretenses, said he didn't commit genocide in World War II, and he did.
Right.
And we were gathering all the proof, doing all the things. And, this is something that I promise there's a point here. I want to explain my reasoning here. This is something that's really important to me, Holocaust history. And I wanted to teach it to my child. But she was very young. She was 5 or 6 at the time. And so I took her to my local Holocaust center.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through the beginning, where they show you all of the anti-Jewish cartoons and things that were designed to basically make it okay to exclude people from society, to say they were bad, to say they were other. And what I told my daughter, because I had to explain it in a way that wouldn't be frightening, but would convey the point. And I said, if there is ever a group of people who tries to tell you that another group of people is less human than you are, don't believe them. They're saying it for a reason. It's never good. Good things will never happen.
That's good advice.
That's what I would say to people. Think of it that way. These Afghans are no less human than us. They are less needing of love and being embraced than we are. And I would just love to see, policy ends with policy. I've watched so many people embrace Afghans, and we can all do that. And
absolutely.
And bring them into our lives. So that's what I would just say. That's my final word is let's try to do more of that. There's no policy that says we can't do that. That's
true. That's very true. And I would love to see that come to fruition. I really would, because like you said before, these people, they've not only been to hell, they've lived in it for years. And they more than anybody else deserve to be treated as people. Okay. They deserve respect. And that's just my personal feelings on it. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up then. I know you got kids to take care of and everything, and it's getting late. So I want to thank you for coming on. And if anybody out there is watching and, you've got some deployments under your belt in Afghanistan and you want to get a hold of Beth, tell your story on her podcast, please do. She's a fantastic lady. Her podcast is great. If you've never seen it, go check it out. It's the Afghanistan Project on YouTube. She's doing great things over there, and I'm a big fan. So, Beth, I want to thank you for coming on, and keep up the good work.
Thanks for having me, Jim. It's been a really good time.
It's 15/2010. It's approximately 18:30 in the evening here at Forward Operating Base Forest. Please tell me your name and your rank, sir.
My name's Corporal Jimmy Robinson.
Congratulations, you just got promoted here. First time being promoted away from the States?
No, I got promoted to PFC during my first deployment.
So this is your second deployment, is that right?
Actually, my third.
Your third. One in Afghanistan?
Yeah, I've done 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan.
All right, tell me, what's your job?
My job, I'm a fire team leader, Alpha team leader under Sergeant Riley.
And how old are you, sir?
27.
How long have you been in the Army?
I've been in a little bit over 5 years.
Where do you hail from?
Originally from Cincinnati, Ohio.
Deployment of Bengals, is that right?
That's right.
I was speaking with Sergeant Riley earlier, and he spoke quite highly of you. You guys look like you have a really tight group here.
Yeah, it's we're all really close. We're all pretty good friends across the board.
You have family back home?
Yeah, I've got a wife and 2 kids back at Fort Campbell.
Congratulations, and their names?
Thank you. My wife's name's Kate, and my oldest daughter is Emily, and the youngest is Tori.
Anything you want to say to them?
I love you guys. I miss you.
Very good. Corporal Robinson, congratulations on your promotion.
All right, thank you very much.
And be safe out here.
I'll try.
It's Jim Sperry, August 15, 2010, at the promotion of Corporal Robinson. Corporal, what's your first name again?
It's Jimmy.
Jimmy. That's an easy name to remember. My name's Jim.
It works, huh?
All right, roger that, buddy. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Congratulations.